Good afternoon, ciao, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to virtual book launch, Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning, the Indonesian version of Italian book Nella Stagione, Delle Farfalle, Gialle by author Fanny Puccioni. Selamat sore para hadirin yang saya hormati. Selamat datang pada peluncuran buku peluncuran virtual buku Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning dari penerjemahan novel Italia Nella Stagione delle Farfalle Gialle oleh penulis Fanny Puccioni. Before we start, I would like to greet our honorable partners and guests on today's event. Saya ingin menyapa mitra dan tamu terhormat yang telah kami undang dalam acara hari ini. To the Excellency Minister of Law and Human Rights of Indonesia, Mr. Yasona Lawli. Selamat sore, Pak. Selamat sore. To the Excellency Deputy Head of Mission of the Embassy of Italy, Mr. Giovanni Brignone. Good afternoon, sir. Then we have Mrs. Maria Battaglia, Director of Istituto Italiano di Cultura, Jakarta. Good afternoon, ma'am. And then Mrs. Esther Telaumbanua, representative from Rumah Nias. Selamat sore, Bu. And also Mr. Wandi S. Brata, Director of Kompas Gramedia Publishing Group, and Mr. Andi Tarigan, representative from Gramedia Pustaka Utama. Selamat sore, Pak. And of course to our author, Fanny Puccioni. Last but not least, to all the participants, thank you for joining us in this book launch. Terima kasih telah menyempatkan waktunya untuk hadir dalam acara sore hari ini. My name is Aninta Mamudi and I will be your host in this event. Pertama-tama, acara akan dibuka dengan serangkaian sambutan dan dilanjutkan dengan diskusi buku di mana para peserta dapat mengajukan pertanyaan. The virtual book launch, Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning, will start with opening speech from the representative of publisher Gramedia Pustaka Utama. Then we will have keynote speech from Minister of Law and Human Rights, Mr. Yasona Lawli. Then follow with opening speech from Deputy Head of Mission of Embassy of Italy, Mr. Giovanni Brignone, and followed by opening speech from Director of Istituto Italiano di Cultura, Mrs. Maria Battaglia. Afterwards, we will have talk show and book discussion with author Fanny Puccioni. The author will be in conversation with Miss Eve Teja, and we will also open Q&A session with the author, and all the participants are welcome to propose a question. Selama jalani acara, para tamu dan partisipan diharapkan mematikan fitur mikrofonnya dan hanya menyalakan saat host atau moderator mengundang. Okay, without further ado, I'll welcome Bapak Andi Tarigan on behalf of Kompas Gramedia Publishing Group to deliver opening speech. Saya mengundang Bapak Andi Tarigan untuk menyampaikan kata sambutan. Silakan Pak Andi, bisa dinyalakan mikrofonnya.
Terima kasih. Yang kami hormati Bapak Yasona Hamonangan Lawli, Menteri Hukum dan HAM Hak Asasi Manusia Republik Indonesia, Bapak Giovanni Brignone, Deputy Head of Mission of Embassy of Italy, Ibu Maria Battaglia, Direktur Istituto Italiano di Cultura, Yahoo. Orang Nias biasa mengucapkan salam dengan Yahoo. Kalau kami di Karo itu mengucapkan dengan menjuah-juah, semacam itu. Itulah tanda persahabatan, perjumpaan. Sore hari ini kita bersama-sama merasa gembira karena buku yang ditulis oleh Fanny Puccioni terbit di Gramedia, dan kami mengucapkan selamat kepada penulis bahwa bukunya telah terbit. Kami merasa gembira sekali karena buku ini berhasil ditulis dengan sangat baik, sehingga mengingatkan kami tentang akar dari Indonesia yang sangat beragam. Jadi sekali lagi selaku penerbit, kami Gramedia Pustaka Utama mengucapkan terima kasih dan selamat kepada penulis. I applaud the publication of your wonderful book, Fanny Puccioni. Lalu ketika saya membaca buku ini, saya tuh teringat satu hal. Itu tahun 2005 itu ketika terjadi gempa di Nias. Itu saya dalam beberapa kesempatan ikut mendampingi anak-anak yang dibawa ke Jakarta. Mereka kehilangan orang tua. Menyedihkan memang. Tapi satu hal yang saya pelajari dari anak-anak itu adalah ketegarannya. Ketegarannya dan keceriaannya yang tidak hilang. Meskipun kita tahu beban yang mereka tanggung sebagai anak itu cukup berat. Dan ketika saya membaca buku ini, Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning, saya menemukan kembali ternyata di sana akarnya, melalui cerita-cerita, melalui kisah-kisah ini, mungkin di sana akarnya ketegaran, keceriaan, keberanian, dan saya menemukan itu kembali ketika membaca tokoh-tokoh dalam buku ini. Mungkin kalau kita mau menafsirkan lebih jauh ya, musim kupu-kupu kuning itu bukan lagi musim ketika kita berburu untuk mencari kepala manusia, khususnya bagi katakanlah bagi anak-anak Nias semacam itu, tetapi musim kupu-kupu kuning adalah musim untuk keluar, pergi mencari ilmu setinggi-tingginya untuk kembali nanti ke Nias, membangun Nias. Mungkin dari saya mewakili penerbit sekali lagi mengucapkan selamat dan semoga acara peluncuran buku ini berjalan dengan baik. Terima kasih, selamat sore.
Terima kasih, thank you Bapak Andi. Next, I would like to welcome Minister of Law and Human Rights of Indonesia, Bapak Yasona Lauli, to give keynote speech on today's event. Silakan Bapak untuk menyalakan mikrofonnya.
Sudah bisa didengar?
Bisa Bapak.
Oke, terima kasih. Thank you very much for moderator. Good evening. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Om Swastiastu, Namo Buddhaya. Salam kebajikan. Yang saya hormati, yang mewakili Kompas Media, Bapak tadi mewakilinya adalah Pak Andi Tarigan, menjuah-juah, jujur. Yang saya banggakan tentunya penulis buku Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning, Mr. Fanny Poccioni. Thank you very much, Mr. Poccioni, that you have taken the time to write a book about Nias. We really appreciate it. As a person from Nias tribe, I can speak on behalf of my brothers and sisters from Nias that I appreciate what you have done in Nias, and I've read that you also came to Nias during the reconstruction era, and then based on your experience then you write a book about Nias. We again thank you very much. Director of Istituto Italiano di Cultura, Ibu Maria Battaglia. Dan tentunya saudara saya, perwakilan dari Rumah Nias, Ibu Esther Telambanua dan Bapak Ibu sekalian. Kita ucapkan puji syukur kepada Tuhan Yang Maha Kuasa karena atas kasih-Nya kita dapat hadir dalam peluncuran buku secara virtual Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning. Walaupun masih dalam kondisi pandemi COVID-19, ingatkan kepada kita semua untuk tetap menjaga protokol kesehatan. Buku Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning ini merupakan sebuah karya seni dari Saudara Fanny Poccioni, seorang penulis berkewarganegaraan Italia yang telah menetap di Pulau Nias sejak tahun 2004. Beliau menetap sejak mendapat mandat sebagai pemimpin proyek rekonstruksi di Pulau Nias pasca tragedi tsunami tahun 2004. Buku ini sangat bagus karena menceritakan fakta sejarah dan geografi Kepulauan Nias dengan hikayat yang berakar pada tradisi lama dan karakter orang Nias. Suku Nias salah satu suku yang menantang dari resistensi masyarakat di Pulau Nias terhadap penjajahan yang digambarkan melalui interaksi kultural dan kemanusiaan di dalam buku ini. Sejak menetap di Nias, penulis menghasilkan beberapa buku, antara lain Tanah Para Pendekar, Petualangan Eliu Modigliani di Nias Selatan tahun 1886. Dulu ketika sahabat saya, mantan duta besar Italia, His Excellency Vittorio Sandali has told me about Elio Modigliani in South Nias, about his adventure to Nias. And now that I read again, I know that Mr. Paccioni write a novella about it, and we as Nias again we should thank you very much. Pada kesempatan ini saya sebagai seorang Nias mengucapkan terima kasih kepada penulis karena lewat buku ini suku Nias dapat lebih dikenal oleh masyarakat luas seperti yang pernah pemerintah pusat lakukan melalui kegiatan Sel Nias pada tahun 2019 yang lalu dalam rangka memperkenalkan potensi wisata yang ada di Pulau Nias serta Festival Yahoo pada tahun 2018 yang memunculkan pameran produk unggulan dan kuliner khas Nias dan atraksi budaya dari kabupaten kota se-Kepulauan Nias. Bapak Ibu sekalian, buku ini memperkenalkan kebudayaan masyarakat Nias tempo dulu yang gemar berperang. Ya, tadi dikutip oleh Saudara Andi, ada kanibalisme, pemotongan kepala. Bahkan pada saat masih SD saya masih nemali, si Esther tahu, Bu Esther, nemali itu tukang potong kepala. Jadi kalau ada raja yang atau bangsawan yang meninggal, dia harus cari kepalanya, menemani. Nah ini tradisi yang, tetapi dengan datangnya misionari ke Nias, misi sending, dan sekarang mayoritas masyarakat Nias beragama Kristen, budaya lama yang pengayau, sebab pengayau itu tidak ada lagi. Lewat buku ini kita disadarkan betapa pentingnya sifat pemberani dalam mengarungi kehidupan di dunia, namun tidak melupakan sifat kasih sayang terhadap sesama, terutama keluarga, dan saling menghargai antar sesama walaupun berbeda keyakinan. Dan negara kita mempunyai semboyan Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, yaitu walau berbeda-beda tetap satu jua. Semboyan ini menggambarkan persatuan dan kesatuan bangsa Indonesia yang terdiri dari suku, agama, ras, dan budaya. Sekali lagi saya ucapkan terima kasih kepada Bapak Fanny Paccioni sebagai penulis buku Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning yang sudah memperkenalkan Pulau Nias beserta kebudayaannya. Dan selamat atas peluncuran buku Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning. Semoga buku ini dapat menjadi inspirasi bagi semua penulis, bagi semua dan penulis dapat terus berkarya dengan menghasilkan buku-buku yang selalu mengangkat tema kebudayaan Indonesia. Jika seorang warga negara asing sangat mencintai negara dan kebudayaan kita, maka kita harus lebih menghargai dan mencintai kebudayaan negara kita sendiri. Saya juga mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Kompas Gramedia Group yang telah menerbitkan buku ini. Kiranya Tuhan Yang Maha Kuasa senantiasa memberikan kekuatan lahir batin kepada kita semua, dan semoga pada masa pandemi COVID-19 ini kita dapat terus menjaga diri dan selalu sehat, dan kita berharap kita, pemerintah, dan seluruh masyarakat dapat menangani pandemi COVID-19 dan kita kembali kepada dunia yang kembali normal seperti sedia kala. Terima kasih atas perhatiannya. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Santi Santi Om. Terima kasih. Dan saya mungkin pada waktu diskusi nanti tidak bisa ikut. Mohon maaf karena ada kegiatan lain. Mr. Paccioni, I won't be able to join you in the discussions due to my other agenda. Again, thank you so very much.
Terima kasih banyak Pak Menteri atas sambutannya dan terima kasih atas kehadirannya. We are really thankful for your keynote speech and your testimony of the book. Next, I would like to welcome the Excellency Deputy Head of Mission of the Embassy of Italy, Mr. Giovanni Brignoni, to give opening speech on today's event. Please welcome Mr. Giovanni Brignoni.
Thank you, Madam MC, Your Excellency Minister Yasona Lauli, Mr. Wandi Subrata, Mrs. Maria Battaglia, ladies and gentlemen, Good afternoon to all of you. I'm really honored to be invited to this book presentation. I also will not be able to stay, for the full length of the discussion, but I really wanted to be present and deliver a few words at the beginning, especially to express my personal congratulations to the author of the book, Mr. Vanni Puccioni, for the publication of the new book, Nella Stagione delle Farfalle, Gialle, Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning, which is the second one translated into the Indonesian language. At the same time, I'd like to acknowledge the author's great interest in research in the field of ethnologic and anthropological studies, and the many years that he spent doing field experience in the island of Nias, which led him also to the rediscovery of the important figure of Elio Modigliani, who's definitely one of the great protagonists of the cultural exchanges between Italy and Indonesia. And at the same time, Mr. Puccioni is animated by a characteristic feature of many Italians who decided to go abroad to work. And that these features are like the ingenuity, the curiosity, and adventurous spirit that in many instances led them to have success and be appreciated wherever they went. And this is something that has a special value in the context of Indonesia and its thousands of islands, where which in the past were not so easy to be reached by travelers from Europe. And especially, I think the work of Mr. Puccioni, as in the past it was the work of Mr. Modigliani, contributed to make these beautiful lands known to the Italian public. And I think this is the case also with this new book, which managed initially to make the wonderful history and cultural richness of the Nias Island known to the Italian public. But now with this translation into Bahasa Indonesia, will probably allow also the Indonesian people to rediscover the ties that exist between this piece of Indonesian land and Italy, thus strengthening also the willingness to collaborate further in the future in the cultural domain. And I would like to also take this opportunity to convey my gratitude to Compass Gramedia for the continuous collaboration with the Italian institutions, and that today sees this fruit, which is the second publication of a book by Vanni Puccioni. This collaboration has actually a long past, as Compass Gramedia has been a very important vehicle for several all Italian authors into Indonesia. I'm thinking, for example, about the publication of the books by writer Susanna Tamaro, such as Va dove ti porta il cuore, Rispondimi, and Ascolta la mia voce. And Gramedia also published a pocket dictionary, Italian-Indonesian, which was written by Mrs. Faiza Soinoto Rivai. And within the context of the cultural agreement between Italy and Indonesia, the Italian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has materially contributed to some of these publishing projects. So I do really hope that we will continue this fruitful collaboration in the future. And for the time being, wish the best of success to the presentation today and to the cultural exchanges between our two countries. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Brignone. I would like to greet Pak William Sabandar from MRT Jakarta. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Good afternoon. And then next we have the opening speech from Mrs. Maria Battaglia from Istituto Italiano di Cultura Jakarta. Mrs. Maria, please welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Your Excellency, Minister Loli. Good afternoon, Deputy Head of the Mission at the Embassy of Italy, Giovanni Brignone, Mr. Vandi Subrata, Director of Compass Media, and Mr. Vanni Puccioni. Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, let me convey my deep gratitude to Compass Media to invite me for this presentation on the book Nella Stagione Farfalle Gialle by Vanni Puccioni, translated in Indonesian. I wish to extend my warmest congratulations to Compass Media for this important achievement. I believe indeed this initiative of translating books is crucial for cultural bridge between the countries and the people. Moreover, this also shows the enhancement of the appreciation of the cultural heritage for preserving the memory of the national identity, community, and its territory, and to promote the development of the culture. According to Deputy Head Giovanni Brignoni said, the Embassy of Italy and the Italian Cultural Institute, through the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and the National Cooperation, have supported the collaboration in field of promotion of Italian book in the world. I think it is important for our two countries to translate from Italian and Indonesian languages. University L'Orientale of Naples is contributing a great deal to this activity of translating. But we have to do much more, and it is necessary to improve the spread of our languages, Indonesian and Italian, in our respective universities. Before I finish, let me to say something. I met Vanni Puccioni in Algiers in 2016, 17 maybe. At that time, I was in charge of the local cultural institute. On that occasion, he gave me copy of his first book, Tanah para Pendekat. It was for me a fantastic, marvelous discovery of the Nias and of its history. And 5 years after, I am here in Indonesia. Grazie, Vanni. Thank you, everyone, so much.
Thank you, Mrs. Maria Battaglia. Before we're moving to the next session, I'd like to invite all the participants to open camera so we can take a good picture together. Okay, there are 2 slides, so we will take 2 pictures in my queue. Ready? 1, 2, 3. And once again, 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Now we're going to have the discussion. I would like to say thanks once again to every guest, Mr. Yasona Lawli, Mr. Giovanni Brignone, and Mrs. Maria Battaglia for your speech to open the discussion. Now I will introduce you to who is Vanni Puccioni. Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning is Indonesian version of book Nella, Stagione, Delle, Farfalle, Gialle from author Fanny Puccioni. Mr. Puccioni was born to an ancient family that is full of history in Florence, Italy. He grew up in Africa and the Middle East before he came back to Florence to study at the architecture faculty in the 1960s. After that, he came back to Africa to work for International Cooperation of Italy, then worked for the United Nations and Europe Union. Furthermore, he is focusing on climate change mitigation and international civil defense. After the tsunami in 2004, Fanny Puccioni was leading a reconstruction project in Nias Island, Indonesia. Then the session will be moderated by Ms. Ifteja. If has been moderating book launch and literary discussion for Gramedia since 2017. She has interviewed several authors from Kevin Kwan to Intan Paramadita. She lives in Bali and currently writing a book about gastronomy adventure. I welcome Ms. Ifteja to start the discussion. Silakan, If.
May I say how honored I am that His Excellency the Minister has made the introductory speech, and also Mr. Giovanni Brignone and of course the director of the Institute. I am very grateful, and really it makes me very proud that such high level participation is at this meeting. I very much hope to be able to see you all soon back in Indonesia, and which is in my heart, and to be back in Nias. And let's see what developments can come further. I like to say straight away that I have a dream, and my dream is that one day, joining our forces, we will be able to make a film from this story. I think it could be an international film that would very much bring Nias on the screens in the world. So again, thank you, Honorable Minister. Thank you, Mr. Giovanni Brignone. Thank you, Director. Thank you, everybody.
Hello, buongiorno. And Yahoo, I think, if I pronounce it correctly, I hope. I'm honored to be the moderator of this event today. Thank you for joining us all the way from Florence, Fanny.
Thank you. Thank you for...
Yes, so just let's start and get this event rolling. A little bit about the book. Set in Nias, Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning began in 1856 during the construction of a Dutch fortress and ended with a massive earthquake and tsunami of 1861. These two historical events were the catalyst which crashed two extremely different cultures and beliefs, the old world and the new world, and changed the lives of many. But Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning also explores the universal themes of love, family, loyalty, bravery, and ultimately asks the question, are we truly that different from each other? I would like to say congratulations first for the publication of the Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning, or in Italian, Nella, Stagione, Delle, Farfalle, Gialle, and in English, in the season of yellow butterflies. Funny, I believe this is not the first book about Nias that Gramedia Pustaka Utama has published from you. In 2017, your book, Tanah Para Pendekar, Petualangan Elio Modigliani di Nias Selatan tahun 1886 was published in Indonesia. Is your new book a continuation of your research from that first book?
Well, I would say that the new book, I have been able to write it thanks to the research for the first book and to my experience in Nias. That what understanding I could gather of the society, of the way of living, of also the research from Elio Modigliani himself, which is massive. And also, I must say, thanks also to the people in the museum in Gunung Sitoli, Pastor Johannes and his collaborators, I have been able to learn something about the Nias society, and then knowing the Nias people, working together with them. You know, at the beginning, to be honest, we're all afraid of people who are so different from us, and a little bit, okay? And then it was great to learn to know them and their way of life, their emotions, sharing the problems we had after the earthquake. You know, many months we were in the mud trying to build something, and sharing also this hardship has been a great lesson. And then it just came, this new book.
Okay, and that's because of your good connection and relations with people of Nias. That inspired you to make this.
Of course it did. Yes, of course it did. I learned to appreciate them, and the differences between our cultures. You know, for example, we Italians, we always speak very loud, okay? And I had somebody who was working with me, and we were having discussions, and they were very animated.
The hand gestures as well.
Hand gestures, the voice, and everything. And so the people around us, they thought we were fighting, but we were not fighting. And so to learn the ways in which we express ourselves, and also for me to learn the way in which you express yourself, because, for example, there was a great lady, I don't know if she's listening to us, Mrs. Nurliza Ginting, who was a counterpart in the project. And she had a very strong personality. But you have such a kind way of expressing yourself when you disagree, you know? And there were some things that she wanted to change in the architecture. And she was talking to the architect and saying, you know, could you please do this, etc. I told her, Lisa, with us Italians, if you want him to really listen, you must get angry. Get a little bit angry and speak strongly. And so the ways of expressing ourselves, we have to learn.
Can we tell you a little bit about the connection that you have? You told me that you found the transcript from Elio Modigliani in the museum in Nias, and that prompted you to translate his work, and then eventually became this book as well.
Yes. Well, actually, it was Pastor Johannes who showed me this book. And it's a fantastic treatise on the culture of Nias. It tells everything from the way in which they produce the salt, to the weapons, to the medicine, everything, or even dancing. And so I said, this has to be translated. And while I was translating it, I discovered that Modigliani had a secret mission. His mission was to bring back to the museum in Florence some human skulls, because they wanted to study these skulls. There was a theory about the fact that the shape of a skull determines if you are going to be a good or a bad man. And so they wanted to learn from this. And so he was doing this secretly. And then there was a big question. Since the warriors were so much stronger than the white colonizers, the Dutch did not dare to go into Nias Selatan at that time. Every time they would be defeated. And Modigliani, he managed to go there basically alone to between the villages which were at war with each other and so on. And but he survived. Nobody hurt him. He never even had to threaten anybody. He managed to sail through all this tension. Why was he not killed? What happened? And that is a little bit the mystery which is in that book. And which is also, we also have a mystery at the opening of the new book.
The second.
Why did the Nias not attack the Dutch before they could build their fort? And so that is one thing which unites them. And as regards my connection with Nias,
Yes.
I suspect that it is in my DNA. It runs a little bit in my blood, in my family. Because, you know, this house where I am living was bought by my grandfather, who was an anthropologist and an explorer. And he was the director of that museum in Italy, in Florence, that wanted the skulls. And in this house, there was this painting hanging on the wall, which you see my grandfather, and in his hands, he has a skull. And it was one of those paintings that really scares you. It seems to move its eyes, it's looking at you everywhere you are in the room. And I was afraid. And I said, what is this? And they told me it's because he was an anthropologist. He was studying people in that way. Now, it seems that that skull which my grandfather had was and is one of the skulls from Nias. Can you imagine this liaison?
And then that was from the 19th century, right?
Yes, exactly.
I believe we also have the painting that you kindly have shared with us, right? So I think a lot of people will be interested to see your late grandfather.
There he is, yes.
Holding on his hand a skull from Nias in the 19th century.
Destiny is something so strange. It was like if I was attracted to Nias in some way.
Yes, fulfilling some sort of a destiny.
So it seems.
Can you give us a context of Nias in the 19th century? Like we live now in a modern era, and I think we feel disconnected. Why did you decide to make this particular time period the setting of Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning?
Why? Because, well, how did this book start? It started really from, I wanted to transmit something, which was what I had learned about the jungle, about moving in nature, about some skills which I had been very lucky to acquire during my life, because I have been working in the national parks in Africa. I've been very much in the jungle, in the bush, and I'd learned these things. And I found myself describing them to people, to my friends, to my children, but I wanted to write them. And so I said, can I really write this story and describe what it's like to be in the jungle, to be hunted or to be hunting? And so that was the beginning. And from that, then I said, okay, now let's build a story around this. Why would people be hunting for another man in the jungle? And so I had to have a good reason. And then I started building up the reason. It was it had to be for a good end, because I wanted my reader to be on the side of him who was hunting the bad guys. And then I started building my characters, my persons, and then it all these characters became alive. They had their personality. I could not make them do what I wanted anymore. And so it is myself and my characters who have written this book, really. That's how it came about.
Okay. And can you give us a little bit of context of Nias in the 19th century? Like, what was it like back then to live there?
I was not living there in the 19th century. I can tell you what it looks like from what Modigliani has told us and what I have been trying to reproduce in my book. First of all, it was a very proud society, and the Nias had to learn to defend themselves. The women in Nias are famous and were famous for their beauty. And it happened again and again that people from outside would come and try to kidnap and bring away the women from Nias. And the Nias had to really show the guys that they were taking a very big risk and that they would be killed if they tried to do this. And I believe that discouraging that sort of visitors was an important part of headhunting, of exhibiting the skulls of the people who had tried to come to Nias and
it's a show of power and defense.
Power and defense. Another thing was the fact that Nias is a very highly seismic area. It has a lot of earthquakes. It has the crossing of three faults. So it's really disadvantaged from that point of view. And that made it difficult to make some big buildings and to develop a transportation system on the island, like with vehicles and roads and things like that. And the Nias villages, they wanted to defend themselves against people who would be coming from the coast. Okay. So they didn't want to have good roads bringing down to the coast because they could be used by the invaders.
Okay.
Okay. And then there was this force, the force of the earth, which is moving, which is trembling, which is destroying from time to time. Something for which even now it is difficult to find an explanation. You can imagine at that time. So this was very much linked with religious beliefs and with the anger of the gods and of the great snake, which encircles the earth and lies at the bottom of the sea. And when it gets sick, it will throw out water, and that is when we have a tsunami. So there was the worry of making sure that the gods were happy, that they would not punish you. And that was an important part.
And that's why sacrifices, right?
Yes.
Was that the reason behind it?
Sorry?
The sacrifices. To please
the sacrifices, yes, the sacrifices were for that reason. Exactly.
And then when and how the Dutch occupation came into this context?
The Dutch occupation?
Yes.
Well, the Dutch, as you know, they had developed the Dutch East Indies Company. And of course, they wanted to control all the territory. And they, of course, wanted to control Nias as well. There was a story that Nias was an island where there was much gold. And the Dutch were also interested for that reason. And they began with making, first going to Gunung Sitoli and making agreements with the chiefs. and they built a small fort there. But when they tried to go deeper in the island, and especially in Nias Selatan, they had big problems because the jungle is so thick that using guns and cannons was impossible. It is, you can only see at a very close distance. And so the Dutch, they were walking through the jungle, trying to reach the villages. And I can imagine these guys with their heavy weapons, their heavy clothes, and they are sweating, and they have ants that are going up in their pants and spiders that are biting them and flies, and they are sweating and they are swearing and they cannot see a thing. And the Nias are around them. Yeah. And they can, when they attack them quickly with their spears and their swords. And the Dutch are too clumsy. They cannot defend themselves really. And so they were losing one time after the other. And so they, there are stories, even of, some generals and admirals, official stories from their reports. They went down to Nias, and they were supposed to teach a lesson to the Nias, but all they did was to stay in the water and shoot with the cannons. And they did not even dare to go on land. Finally, they decided one day they decided, no, now we really have to do something serious. And that's when they built the forts. And then what happened then is told in my book.
Yes, and people who watch us today, you have to buy and read it to find out why. Okay, I would like to poke at the darker aspect of the book, the school hunting. I first found the title, Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning, actually romantic. But then I read the book and then I found a completely different meaning of it. Can you share with us about these headhunters and the relevance of the yellow butterflies? Just to give the viewers a sneak peek.
Yes, of course. Well, the headhunters is it's just one way of making war and of making conflict between people. And that is part always of growing up, of history, of meeting between civilizations, especially when one is trying to overcome the other. So if you want to talk about the conflict between the Dutch colonizers and the Nias, you have to talk about headhunting. And now, why is it like that in the jungle? It is the way in which it happened, which is very peculiar and very special. And I hope that I have been able to make you feel what it was like to be there in the jungle and use your senses. Because the thing you have to know when you are in the jungle, in the thick jungle, where is the other guy? And how can you find him? You can find him through your senses, through your smell, through your eyes, through your ears. And you have to learn how to use your senses in that context. I have been very lucky because I have been taught these things when I was in Africa by a Maasai hunter who taught me very much about the bush. And so I was able to tell the story like that. And so that's why. So this is what brings the adventure and the reason for saving the little girl Bohua from the tragedy that would have come otherwise.
And the significance of the yellow butterflies?
That is because when I, it's funny, I was working with Nias Nias team, we were working on the project, and there was a young architect there, architect engineer, and I was asking my Nias friends, but is this thing about headhunting, is it still continuing? What is happening with it now? And Amal, he said, well, let me just tell you this, that when I was a little boy, my mother used to tell me, don't go out in the fields when there are the yellow butterflies, because that is the head hunting season. So that is why the yellow butterflies.
Okay. See, not that romantic at all, isn't it? Okay, and there's a very cinematic quality, which is, I'm not surprised that's why you mentioned, like, hopefully somebody here would hear that this book very adaptable to movie. And without spoiling the story too much, for me, when I read it, I think you have made the characters really came alive by showing the reader, you know, how they live, how they make love, how they worship, and how they hunt. How did you get through it? I mean, come on, you've been to Nias long time, you know it intimately, you've done like a lot of research, but what kind of research and writing process to be able to really understand what it's like to be a Nias?
Well, there are two different things. One is writing about, you know, the way in which things work, the anthropological part of the research, okay? What the techniques and the medicine and this and that. The other thing is about building the personalities.
Mm-hmm.
And really what I have learned very much from the Nias is how similar we are, how much we resemble each other, and how we have shared emotions that are the same, and that we can meet on those. And I think, you know, especially in a time like this, where there is so much conflict between different cultures and the world is looking ugly,
Yes.
it is so important that we find the way that, even though come from the other side of the planet, and so much time has gone by, etc., we can get into each other's hearts and we can share emotions. And if I have been able to share emotions with this book, that is very important for me. And the characters, well, they are all people that exist really. And I have met them. They only pretend to be somebody else in today's society, but really they are the Archbishop, they are Tua, they are the Subia. I've met all these people. I have been lucky to have the love of women like Sumia, the female character, that kind of love, I know it. I am lucky that my children, my two daughters, they resemble very much the character of Muhua, and my, you know, and so people, good and bad, they come from the real world. Only they're wearing different clothes in today's society.
I cannot agree more. I want to remind our viewers that please, we will have a Q&A session. Please put your question in a box and then we will discuss it later. Before we move on to the Q&A, I would like to ask, from your experience and your interaction with Nias, being situated in between this, I think you said 4 plates or faults, and it caused earthquakes and it's always been quite unstable, right? The environment there. But how do you think this shaped the indigenous culture of Nias people then and now?
Well, it shared it because they could not explain to themselves the nature of this huge force of nature, where it came from and why it would hit them, their world, and destroy things and kill people. And so suddenly these things would happen. And why? They had to look for a reason. But of course, at that time, there was not the knowledge that we have today about earthquakes. So the explanation was that it came from the gods. And why does it come from the gods? Because we have done something wrong. So how do we can make peace with the gods? We have to make a sacrifice. And of course, there would be the ere, which would act as a go-between God and yourself. And some of them could be bad guys, and they would use this role that they had to serve their own interests rather than the interests of society.
Yes.
And so, as you can see, we have in the book, we have three people who are in a role like that. One is the old good ere from Bao Mataluo.
The shaman. Yeah.
Another one is a young bad guy, Mr. Khalifa. And then we have another one, which is a witch doctor, but he is a bullet. It is Mr. Clint, who is a missionary.
Yes.
And he also has his special relation with God. And God plays a part in all of this. And we find also there that the God of the Nias is the same as the God of the Bule. And
there's different names, right?
And that, sorry?
But we call them in different names.
We call him in a different way, yes. And then another character in the book is the sea, the ocean.
Yes.
It is the instrument of God to interact with the people.
Yeah. Last question from me. Why do you think learning about this particular time, culture, and history relevant to us now?
Well, your history is always relevant. I think that the Nias have a lot to be proud for their history and for what they have been. And I know that they also gave a difficult time to the Japanese when they were invading the island during the Second World War. And their proudness and the history is part of you. It is what has shaped you. And you need to know it. You need to be proud of it. You need to take the good things from it, learn your lessons from history. And here, especially in this case, learn how it is possible to bridge the gaps. You know, Modigliani, why did he survive? Because instead of coming with the attitude, I am from a civilized country, you guys are savages, I have to teach you, and I will rule upon you. He was always showing what we have in common between the cultures and speaking to the Nias as his equals and dealing on the same terms. And that is so important. And it is a little bit what the character of the missionary Clint also does in the book.
Was he a composite of Elio?
Sorry?
Was he a composite of Elio Modigliani, you think? the way that he came and live among the Nias people, and then, you know, so humble and open and willing to learn and share.
Yes, there is similarity. Elio Modigliani was not quite as humble as is Clint, but yes, I mean the important thing is that one of being of not thinking yourself as a superior.
True.
And that is something, you know, and not being afraid of the other culture. And that is something really, if there could be more of that in this world today, I think our world would be a better place.
I agree. Openness and willingness, right?
Yes.
Finding more similarity instead of the dissimilarities and the differences.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly.
I would like, before we start with the Q&A, I would like to invite Ibu Esther Telaumbau now dari Rumah Nias to join us. And yeah, we would like, I know that you and Fanny know each other.
Yeah.
How long have you known each other?
Yes.
Oh, many years.
Did you work together?
No,
Okay.
no, we didn't work together. But we understand each other,
Yes.
right?
Can you tell me, I understand that you have written a book, right? Can you tell me about what you think about this book and its significance for Nias people?
Well, can I use bahasa Indonesia?
Boleh sekali.
Okay.
Ya.
First of all,
Saya
congratulations,
ya,
for
dan
Fanny.
Indonesia. Saya tanya dengan Ibu Esther, apa kira-kira signifikansi buku ini untuk orang Nias sendiri?
Saya kira ini sangat menarik sekali karena ini bukan buku pertama. Ketika ini bukan menjadi buku pertama, kita sudah melihat ada visi di dalamnya, ada misi di dalamnya, ada sesuatu yang membuat Fanny menulis yang kedua. Nah, ketika yang pertama itu, untuk yang belum tahu bahwa ada satu buku namanya Tanah Pendekar, itu ditulis oleh Fanny karena terinspirasi dari buku Elio Modigliani. Itu seorang penjelajah yang datang ke Nias tahun 1886. Nah, sepulang itu kembali ke Italia, dia bukan hanya membawa kisah, dia menulis buku yang namanya Viaggio a Nias, right, Fanny? The books of Elio. Lalu dia juga membawa beberapa kepala, lalu disimpan di museum heritage di Italia. Nah, ketika kakeknya Fanny ini menjadi direktur museum, itu dia mungkin mendengar cerita selalu tentang Nias melalui pekerjaan museum itu, dan itu menjadi daya tarik Fanny untuk ke Nias. Tapi yang pertama sebenarnya pertanyaannya adalah bagaimana Elio bisa lolos dari kejaran si pemburu kepala ini, bahkan sampai membawa kepala ini ke Italia. Nah, itu tadi Fanny sudah menjawab bahwa dia melakukan interaksi budaya dengan masyarakat Nias. Bahkan kalau di dalam bukunya, buku Elio itu, dia menyuruh membayar orang untuk memenggal kepala. Jadi kita tidak bicara soal penggal kepala itu sebagai sesuatu yang kita akan tiru, tetapi adalah buku Fanny ini bagi saya sebagai semacam dialektika dari history, itu masa kini. Jadi masa kini. Jadi membaca buku ini kita bisa melihat tradisional atau peradaban Nias tahun 1886. Jadi imajinasinya buku ini sebagai novel novel etnografis kalau istilahnya ya, itu membawa kita memahami peradaban Nias pada tahun 1886. Nah, ini dari versi orang Italia saja kita bisa memahaminya. Mungkin kalau kemudian orang Indonesia menuliskan dan menelusurinya, melakukan heritage trails, kembali perjalanan Elio ini atau perjalanan dari penjelajah dulu, mungkin ini akan orang Nias sendiri akan bisa menemukan jati dirinya. Dan kita juga akan bisa memahami kenapa terjadi mangani binu, itu namanya yang penggal ini ya. Kalau mangani binu, jadi kalau yang pemenggal kepalanya itu namanya emali, pemburu kepala itu. Mereka punya reasons, they have reasons why they hunted the heads. They have reasons. Nah, kalau menurut secara tipologi kebudayaan, orang Nias ini kan juga memahami kebudayaan yang mitis, bukan mistis ya, mitis. Mitis itu juga bukan primitif, tapi orang Nias itu berbudaya selalu menjaga, memelihara hal-hal yang tabu, yang diyakini sebagai nilai-nilai yang baik, nilai-nilai dari diri mereka. Jadi itu membuat cerita ini akan terus hidup. Jadi kalau melihat buku Kupu-Kupu Kuning, The Yellow Butterfly ini, memang kalau hanya sekedar buku-buku Kupu-Kupu Kuning, orang nggak akan tertarik. Tapi tanya kepada orang Nias, kalau ditanya, kamu kalau dengar lihat kupu-kupu kuning, kamu apa yang muncul di benak? Itu beragam sekali. Yang pertama, kalau pada masa sekarang ini yang muncul adalah, maaf ini harus saya katakan, ini adalah masa moonman. Jadi ini kupu-kupu kuning ini selalu diidentikan masa pancaroba, ada musim buah, perubahan, lalu ada musim buah, dan di situ orang muntah, sering terjadi sakit perut, diarrhea. Diarrhea itu, nah pada waktu itu bahkan terjadi sering sekali orang mati. Matinya itu karena dianggap penyakit dari makan buah yang kotor. Dari mana kotornya ini? Ini dari kupu-kupu kuning yang pada masa pancaroba itu ada. Nah, jadi kupu-kupu kuning ini selain dia indah, tapi dia rupanya diidentikan dengan si pembawa penyakit, pembawa bakteri. Nah, walaupun waktu itu pada masa-masa dulu, ketika kupu-kupu kuning ini ada bergerombol ya. Kalau sekarang kita sulit menemukan secara bergerombol. Mungkin ada, tapi tidak secara bergerombol, dan orang juga tidak memperhatikan karena apa? Vaskes sudah ada, fasilitas kesehatan sudah ada, sehingga tidak lagi mengalami. Tapi seperti Fanny told us, itu tinggal di-remind di dalam benak kita. Kalau kamu
lihat kupu-kupu
kuning, nah muncul kupu-kupu kuning, hati-hati anak-anak nggak boleh keluar. Nah itu satu. Yang kedua, tadi kalau ada kupu-kupu kuning itu berarti ada emali, hati-hati begitu. Ada, sebenarnya tidak juga gitu ya. Tapi itu yang karena kebudayaan mitis tadi itu terbawa. Cara-cara untuk memberi pelajaran kepada anak, menakuti pada anak. Mungkin ada juga dulu cerita ya pemotong leher, dan tapi itu tidak ada pada era sekarang. Nah, itu satu bagian fase dari memahami kupu-kupu kuning ini ya. Jadi kalau fase yang lebih akurat lagi sekarang ini, kalau ada kupu-kupu malah dianggap bahwa wilayah itu cukup kualitas lingkungannya bagus. Ya. Nah, itu ya sekarang. Tapi kalau orang Nias tradisional dulu memahami itu kupu-kupu kuning ini dulu kan Nias fase tahun 1800-an itu masih dalam religi lama.
Ya.
Jadi waktu Belanda datang itu kan bersama dengan misionaris-misionaris tuh. Nah, itu mereka memahami kalau kosmosnya orang Nias itu kan ada strata-stratanya. Jadi kalau orang bangsawan itu mulia, mereka kalau mati itu ke atas. Mereka akan hidup di dunia atasnya. Kalau orang jelata ini jadi kupu-kupu kuning.
Ada cerita itu juga.
Katanya istilahnya kule-kule itu. Kulo .2. Jadi itu artinya kenapa pemahamannya. Jadi kalau nanti kita baca buku ini akan menarik karena seperti pemahaman kita terhadap kupu-kupu kuning ini dari dua rezim sebelum agama masuk, masih religi lama itu, maka ketika kita memahami kalau kalimat di buku Fani ini itu masuknya itu pada masa musim kupu-kupu kuning.
Ya.
Jadi itu artinya apa? Itu bulan Maret, April. Itu masa kupu-kupu kuning itu ada.
Jadi itu juga bisa digunakan untuk mendeskripsikan bahwa
itu juga. Nah, tapi sekarang memang
mungkin zaman kita saat ini juga zaman kupu-kupu kuning ya, Bu ya.
Tapi sekarang pancaroba udah anomali cuaca itu juga banyak, jadi kelihatannya kurang.
Karena kan hidup kita saat ini juga kurang lebih seperti itu kan, dibongkar pasang, ya kan, ada pandemi, ada ini penuh pergolakan seperti itu kan.
Jadi spirit buku ini ada di situ, di pergelutan antara dia memegang tradisi lama, kebiasaan lama, pola pikir lama, kebudayaan lama, perspektif lama, dengan datangnya orang Belanda, walaupun dia penjajah, misionaris, dan agama pada tahun 1888 sekian itu. Jadi memang itu pergelutan kebudayaan yang rupanya dilewati oleh Elio ini, dia lewat pada fase itu, bahkan bisa membawa kepala. Jadi dia aman karena dia melakukan dialog interaksi budaya dengan orang Nias. Kira-kira itu, ini sangat menarik memang ya bukunya.
Harus dibaca itu ya. Orang Indonesia dan terutama
ini novel ini membawa imajinasi kita kepada situasi pada waktu itu. Memang bahasa Fani ini memang agak sedikit mudah difahami. Nah, itu karakter bahasanya dia ya, dia tidak menambah kurangi. Tapi buku ini agak sedikit bercampur dengan antara fakta dengan fiktif ya, karena ada nama-nama. Ini untuk nama-nama ini Fani ini berapa kali telepon saya, kadang-kadang saya nggak angkat, dia taruh di Facebook di ini, Esther ini nama, I need some names, Nias names. itu Fani, dia ketawa kan.
You are the resource ya.
Ya, saya ini diaspora yang juga yang mencintai tentu tanah leluhur saya. Saya berusaha mencari, di saat nggak ada dia lagi telepon, ya udah saya kasih mati ya. Sorry Fani.
Yes, I'm so curious. I hope that there will be a translation of all the things you said.
Yeah, I know. But because this is,
I will call you after. I will call you and explain it to you.
Yeah, because the books published in Indonesia, so I try to
sure, of course. Yes.
to describe what the meanings of the books in bahasa. So.
Tapi sebagai orang Nias sendiri, Bu, bagaimana gitu? Maksudnya perasaan Ibu membaca buku ini?
Saya justru lebih merasa kalau kita sendiri kan ada dua faktor tadi ya. Ada yang bilang, wow, pemburu kepala gitu kan, horor banget gitu. Tapi ketika versinya Fanny's version say about tadi ada apa namanya kesetaraan. Jadi mereka memahami mengapa waktu itu terjadi tradisi pemenggalan kepala. Memang mengerikan kalau kita melihat itu. Jadi memang kadang-kadang kita perlu berkaca juga pada perspektif orang lain melihat kita untuk kita bisa memahami kita untuk bisa lebih maju. Saya kira begitu. Iya.
Terima kasih Ibu Esther. Thank you very much. Yes. Saya akan mulai dengan sesi Q&A. I will begin the Q&A session, Fanny. There are several questions in the box now. A lot of questions for you, a lot of congratulations and appreciation as well. One question from Apollonius Lasse. He said, congratulations for your new book. And I want to know how did you collect the material of your book, and are you fluent in Nias language?
Unfortunately, I can only say Yahoo. No, I am, unfortunately, I am ignorant of the Nias language. How did I collect the material? Well, it comes from many sources. The main source was the study by Elio Modigliani, all what I have been able to get from the museum in Gunung Sitoli. And then by traveling across Nias, you know, when I made the book about Elio Modigliani, I was asking myself the question, you know, what was it really like? Because he's telling the story from his point of view. And what did it look like from the other side, from the side of the Nias? So what I did was to go into the villages, which he mentions in the book, and try to get what people remembered about Modigliani. It was not such a long time ago, it was 3 generations. And that also helped in putting together the story. And then after that, there was imagination of...
Which part of Nias did you go to visit? Because somebody asked, did you go to Gomo?
To Gomu? No, I cannot recall going to Gomu.
Okay.
Maybe, but maybe it had a different name. Where is Gomu? Is it in Nias Selatan? I don't know. I've visited most of Nias Selatan and less of the north of the island, but basically I've been around everywhere in Nias.
Rika Sri Rizky asked, like, congratulations for the new book, and how long will you stay in Nias, and how long did it take to finish the book?
Well, for 3 years, I was in and out, 3, maybe 4 years, while our project was lasting. I came in and out of Nias, working with under Mr. Sabandar of BRR in Nias, and with Mrs. Nurliza Ginting from the government of North Sumatra. She was my counterpart. And so those 3 years were the fundamentals. Then I have been back to Nias another time. And the book, well, it took about 4 years to write it because things had to grow and fit with each other.
Okay. A reader, Laisa from Yogyakarta, she had no particular question, but she would like to appreciate. Thank you to you and Gramedia as well. At the moment, she is actually reading the book. And then your name, your Italian name, attracted her to read it. Because one, it's very rare to find like Italian authors being translated here. So maybe, yeah, that's another project maybe for the Italian institution in the future. I think we are curious in Indonesia as well to know more about Italian culture. And she enjoyed it. She really enjoyed it. She said, Laisa said, it's very lively and very readable. And even she said, like, she made it, you made it like she wanted to know Indonesia more.
Yeah, good. I'm happy.
Yes.
I'm very happy.
Adoro la sua storia. Ciao de Jogja, she said.
Okay.
And another comment I would like to mention is from Etis Nehe. I hope I mentioned your name correctly. Congratulations for the book. It is very delightful to be able to get this information, and as you know, that talks about the life and the community of Nias. And he is from Desa Bawomatulu, which is the setting of the book, right? And you met before in Italian Cultural Institution in Jakarta during the launch of your first book a couple of years ago. And he just wanted to share, like, when he was young, he's already familiar with the message, like, you know, be careful if there's a yellow butterfly.
Really?
But it is a common knowledge in the village, which means that if you see some, then it means the emali, which is the skull hunter, might be around. But yeah, I mean, it's been what, he said, like, even from 30 years ago, I think a lot of people stopped believing in that because there's no more. The practice was over, and then the war between the villages is also over. So yeah, just a comment of appreciation.
Yes. I see there's somebody from Hidisi Maitano, which is a place which I appreciate very much. Yes.
Yeah. And yeah, so there's a lot of, yes, somebody having a holiday at the moment in Sardinia, I think, also dropped by to say hello. And yeah, and then Elson Daki wrote, it's congratulations for the book and greetings from Nias Island. I appreciated this book, and I want to know, he asked, like, description of the village in the story. How do you, the question is, I think, hang on, so he wanted to know, like, how you use the description of the village relating to the story.
Because of course I have seen the villages myself as they are now, but also I have the photographs of Elio Modigliani. You know, that was really at the beginning of photography, when there was they were using daguerreotypes, and believe it or not, while he was moving in the jungle, he was carrying with him all the equipment for the photography of that time, and that he was able to develop and print the photographs while he was in the middle of the jungle. That is incredible.
Yes.
And those photographs are of course, represent what can be seen, what can be learned, and that helped in the visual description.
Yes.
And also, of course, all the material from the museum in Gunung Sitoli.
Okay, so that's the visualization of the village comes from, right?
Sorry?
Yeah, that's how you get the visualization for the villages, and then what the people wore back then as
yes,
well.
Exactly. Yes, the clothes and what people were wearing, you can get them in the museum, and you can get them from the photographs of Elio Modigliani. And if you go on my Facebook as Vanni Puccioni author, or as Tanakh para Pendecar, you will find these pictures.
Okay, I hope that answered your question, Elson. And then Militsa said, I believe your book will inspire many people. So another appreciation for you.
Thank you. I really hope it will inspire people to getting over this fear that we have of a different culture, of different people, and learning to be friends and brothers across different cultures and distances.
And maybe to encourage more writer from Nias, right? I mean, because it's also a beautiful thing to write about your own hometown or your own country as well.
Yes, well, I don't know. I have not written much about Italy. I have a book which will be probably one of the next ones. I have two new books. One is about, they have nothing to do with Nias. One is about climate change, which is what my profession is.
Mm-hmm.
And it is about my experiences in working on climate change, and also what should change in the way in which we are addressing the problem of climate change. We need more action and much faster action and strong action. And the other book is a book about Africa, about the many years in Africa. And that is also about a different culture, different people, and how you interacted with these people, and how the Africans helped me to grow up and become more of a man. I was a young and rather arrogant young man when I began to work in Africa, but African people have taught me much, and I have changed for the better, I hope.
And in that particular topic, if I may ask, like, how does Nias change you as well?
Nias, overcoming the fear of a different culture. That was really the beginning, you know. As a young, as a teenager, you know, there was much that we would read about, oh my God, there are so many Asians. They're so much more numerous than us. And we should be afraid of them, even though that was not the culture in my family, because my family was very much international. But then when I arrived in Indonesia, and I saw, God, how many people and how different they are from me, and what do they think, and how do they behave, and then I really learned to love the Indonesian people and the Nias people, and to learn how much we have in common, and that has taught me a lot. And also the incredible thing that I have discovered myself as a writer, thanks to the story of Elio Modigliani, and that I am capable of communicating across differences in culture and in time. And that is a great thing for me.
There's another question here about, I think Atis asked about the proofreading or the names that are being mentioned. He asked, is Gramedia probably used like proofreading or something about the names? But I think this is the question that should be asked to Gramedia, I think. So maybe somebody from Gramedia can answer later on. And there's another question from Doni Christian Daci. Hi, Mr. Fani. Congratulations of the launching of the book. many of the name that Modigliani wrote, especially in pardon, maaf kalau saya salah ya menyebutnya, ada Hilisi Maitano, Duada Siwasahilu, and Kamega are still familiar with the locals. But do you get any chance to interview their descendant, probably to get more insight from the local perspective? And then another question is, anyway, is it true that Modigliani named his daughter with Nias word, Mohua?
Yes, I will start with the last question. It is true. He named his daughter Mohua. I have met her and spent some time with her. She is now a very old lady, but she still has some very beautiful, very deep blue eyes. And I tell her, you must have broken many hearts with those eyes of yours. And yes, I have I managed to interview a descendant of Kamega, and I have spent some time in Hilisi Maitano, not as much as I would have liked, but I have been there and interviewing the descendants, yes.
And were there people that still remember Modigliani, or the stories that you found, maybe?
Well, the people that I met had not met Modigliani because too much time had gone by, but they remembered of the stories, yes.
And is there like many, I think a lot of the viewers are interested to know this, like were there like any particular story that you remember that you heard from the...
There is, if you read the book, the first book, there is this, he is in, Modigliani is in Hilisi Maitano, and first he makes friends, and there is the chief, and there is Siwa Sahilu, who is a great warrior. And first they are getting on well together and so on. And then something happens and everything goes in the wrong way. And Modigliani has to run away from Hilisi Maitano. What happens? I don't know. And I am intrigued about what was the event. I have one suspicion.
Which is?
He talks a lot about a beautiful lady.
Okay, the famous Nias beauties.
And maybe he's talking too much about that beautiful lady. And what there may be something like that.
So it's a accident.
She happened to be the wife of the great warrior, and he spends some words in telling us how beautiful she was, how she was moving, how she was. She knew so much that she was beautiful, and well, this guy was young and he was Italian.
Yeah, that's a pretty dangerous combination, I suppose.
The result is that he had to run away.
Okay. There's another question from Cyrus. He said, like, I would love to see the love story of Tuha and Sumia. To see that story in the big screen.
Yes, well, let's go, guys. I think if we put together our forces, we should be able to, I hope we can find a producer, that we can find a good Indonesian producer to team with international producer, maybe Italian or from the other parts of the world. I'm sure this film could be an international success, because it is a kind of movie that can do that, and it will also, I think, help to bring Nias known to the international world and bring more people to visit the beautiful island and Indonesia.
Never say never. Antonia Chiorente asked you, is it, it's, I think it's not too clear on how much of a fiction is in Musim Kupu-Kupu in comparison to the Tanah Para Pendekar. Can you elaborate perhaps?
From Antonia.
Yes.
Well, fiction. What is fiction? As I say, it's all the characters and the events are real in the sense that they are people who have existed but have lived somewhere else in the world. They have had another name, or but the characteristics, the personality exists. There are individuals like that and have been individuals like that. And the ethnographic, I don't know, but it is actually better to ask the people from Nias this question. Have I been able, to what extent you think I have been able to really capture your culture as it was at that time, in your own perception of what it was like at that time? I've done my best, but did I succeed? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the question, right? But I think from the appreciation that you received tonight, you're pretty much succeed, right? I mean,
Terima kasih.
yes. Is there any further question, or should I end the Q&A? Okay, the Gramedia said yes. So yes, I think to wrap this up, and before I give it back to the MC, I would like to say thank you so much. First to you, Fanny, in Florence, for giving us the time. Florence in Indonesia is pretty far, and then travel is at the moment impossible for any of us. So I think during the last 2 hours, you hopefully get the comfort, warm big hug from us in Indonesia. And likewise, people in Indonesia also got the chance to get a big warm hug from Italy, from you. And especially for the audiences who are people of Nias, Ibu Esther, and everybody here. Pardon if I mention or spell the name wrongly. I have yet to visit Nias as an Indonesian myself. I'm sorry to say, but I will when everything is better. And I hope you are entertained and happy with this, the last 1 hour when we have this discussion. And I think it's important to acknowledge the contribution that Fanny has made, an attempt in capturing the old world, Nias, and then building this very important bridge between the past and the future. I mean, that's the most important thing, right? And then, as you said as well, to always open your heart and try to find the similarities between us, no matter how differences our culture are. I think that's the most important lesson that we can learn from the book. So thank you for that. I hope you had an enjoyable evening, and I will return this session to the MC.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Eve and Mr. Fanny Puccioni, for the delightful conversation. Finally, Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning is officially launched in Indonesia. Congratulations to Mr. Puccioni and Gramedia Pustaka Utama as the publisher. Musim Kupu-Kupu Kuning is available at Gramedia Store with pesan antar or order and delivery feature. You can find it online as well on gramedia.com, Gramedia Official Store Tokopedia, Gramedia Official Shop Shopee Mall, and Gramedia Pustaka Utama Official Shop Shopee Mall. And then on behalf of the organizer, I thank our honorable partners, guests, and participants who joined us today. Thank you, Mr. Fanny Puccioni, who delivered a great explanation about the book. I can't wait to read the book as well. And pardon me if there is any wrongdoing or mistakes during today's event. Good evening and have a nice weekend. Saya Aninta Mamudi, terima kasih dan sampai jumpa.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.